Welcome everybody to the Money Soapbox series. If you are new, welcome. You have tuned into a series that's all about stewardship, stewarding our finances that we currently have, because if we don't know what to do with what we have, we won't know what to do when we come into more. Now, we spent the last 8 weeks uncovering and tackling the toxic spending habits that keep us secretly stuck in a poverty lifestyle. Now it's time to shift our focus to the big spending categories, the ones that shape how we live every single day. Today, we're going to talk about housing. Now, we've all heard the advice your housing costs should not exceed 30% of your gross income. Now, these days, that percentage has crept up, but the truth still remains. If your money isn't aligned with your goals, your lifestyle is working against you instead of for you. And housing is a big piece of that. Too many people today are house poor. You got people living in beautiful luxury apartments they barely spend time in because they're constantly working just to afford them. And I've seen people working 2 and 3 jobs just for the right to say that they live in a nice apartment or a killer house. That's not living, that's being a slave to your space. 30% rule or not, when do you know when it's time to reassess your housing expenses? Ask yourself, are you spending more time at work than enjoying your home? After rent or mortgage, do you barely have enough left for vacations, investing, or even basic home repairs, or if the car breaks down or some emergency? Are you paying for more space than you actually use? Now, keep in mind that more space means higher utility bills, more maintenance, and more time spent cleaning and caring for rooms that you don't even use. Now, I came across a man where he had a big house that was way too much for him. At that time, it was just him and a dog. But he did not want to sell the house. So, what did he do? He moved out into a hotel, or actually a motel that have those studio rooms, and he rented out his home to a family. And so instead of letting the current situation that he was in drain his wallet, he got creative. And that one decision, that one solution flipped his situation around. The rental income now covered his mortgage and his new living costs, bringing his housing expenses to almost zero. Pretty creative. Now, if you've answered yes to any of those questions, then it's time to make a change. So, how do we make that change? How do we move towards making that change? Where do we start? Well, the first step is to figure out how much you can realistically afford without becoming a slave to your home. For me, that number was $1,000 a month. I needed to be the max $1,000 or below that. Now, people told me that wasn't realistic. They said you can't even get an apartment in the hood for that. But I stuck to it because that was my budget. And I prayed. I asked God to guide me to something within my budget that was safe, clean, and simple. I didn't need all the bells and whistles. I didn't need the granite countertops, the high end appliances. I didn't need all that. I just needed peace of mind and a housing expense or a housing budget that was going to move me in a direction of financial freedom. I was open to all possibilities, whether it was a studio, a room, a hotel, or a motel. Now, I will say this, you will be surprised at how many people have turned to hotels and motels as their primary residence because overall they're actually cheaper than renting. Now, that's a whole nother separate video that I will do on that. Now, after weeks of searching, I found a place that checked every box and it fit my budget. When people say it can't happen, God says all things are possible. Make your plan and ask God to direct your steps. So don't listen to what people tell you, stick to your goals. Now, what are other creative solutions that I have seen work out for many, many people? Some have rented out a room in their homes as a short term rental. Maybe they have that house or that big apartment and they don't want to move out. Well, they can put that extra space to use by renting it out on a short term basis. There are this pad split options that's becoming more and more popular because you're renting out a room and you're sharing the rest of the house with other people. For some people, that's all they need for a specific amount of time in their life or whatever time period they are within their journey. Live where you work. Now, many companies have corporate housing options that they don't advertise, they don't put it out there. And these housing setups are usually much cheaper than the traditional apartment or mortgage. Now, my father, when he was working, he was always on the road for work. So he only came home or he was home 1 day a week. That was it. But he was still paying for an apartment that he barely used. And it just didn't make sense financially for him. And so he went to his boss and he asked if there were any other options or solutions. He was just asking for feedback. And it turns out there were options that he was not aware of. So they worked out a housing arrangement that actually saved him hundreds of dollars every month. And he would have never known had he not asked and looked for a solution. So he ended up taking the money that he saved and investing that in different ways. Okay. And then when his situation changed, when he was no longer working and he retired, he built a home that he paid for in cash. So the bottom line is your home should serve you, not enslave you. We were all created in the likeness and image of God, which means we carry His creativity. It's time to stop living by the standards that are set by the world and tap into the God given creativity to come up with smart, creative housing solutions that align with our goals of building a healthy, purpose driven financial lifestyle. Now, if you got a housing hack that has helped you, or you're in the process of exploring that's going to help you stay within your budget, share it below. Someone else might need your solution. That is it for this week's episode of the Money Soapbox series. Now, next week, we're going to tackle the next category, and that is travel, or I'm sorry, not travel, transportation. Okay. That's the car payments, the insurance, and everything associated with transportation. So I'll see you all next week on the Money Soapbox.